let's say we have this array right here. This is a 2D number array, and I've called it a road. Basically, it's a road that we want to iterate over in a spiral path. So what do I mean by that? Basically, here I've labeled it to make it easier to visualize. It starts from 1 and it ends at 25. This is a 5 by 5 square array. Now, this could be it could be a rectangle too, doesn't matter. But just for simplicity, I made it square. And I labeled it from 1. And what we're doing is we're going to the right, as we normally do when we iterate over an array. But then when we get to the end right here at 5, then we go down to 6, 7, 8, and 9. And then we go to the left. And then we go above again at 16. We don't go back to 1 because we already been to that one. Then we go to 16, 17, 18, 19. Again, we don't go to this 6 because we've already been there. Then we go down, go back left, go back top, and we end up at 25. It is a spiral fashion, notice that. Now, you might have noticed here that every single time we go to the right, we go one less than before. So for example, the first time we go to the right, we go all the way until the end. But then the second time that we go to the right, which is right here, we go one less than that. In other words, we don't go through all the columns. The column that we end at is one less every single time. And the same deal with the row. Every time we go down, we go one less. The row that we end at is one less every time. And then same deal, if we go to the left, then the column that we start at is one less every time. For example, like that. And then when we go top, when we go above, then the row that we start at is one less every time. So we're sort of coming inward, sort of padding out the surroundings of this road. That's what's happening here. So let's go ahead and actually write a function for this, so it's a lot easier to see what's happening if we see the logic as well. So I'm going to call this function get spiral path, and I'll make it take an arrow. And inside this function, I want to actually return, let's say, a collection of coordinates. The collection of coordinates specifies the path that we are on. In fact, it doesn't even have to be coordinates. We'll just do a collection of numbers here because I've clearly labeled them from 0 to 5 to 9 to 25. So we should see an output in order from 0 to 25. So I'll do that right here. I'll just create a const called spiral path, make it an empty array, and then I want to just return that for now. And again, we want to test this function out. We want to develop it methodically. So let me just go ahead and console log what we have so far. I will invoke this function with road, and that's that. Now what I should expect is just an empty array. And that's what we have right here. So far, so good. Okay, now the work begins. So what I want to do is, once again, I want to iterate over normally only in one direction. The other directions are obviously dependent on how I go. So let's start by defining some variables. We want to first say, remember, we first established that the row that we start at and the row that we end at, along with the column that we start at and the column that we end at, is different every single time. It decreases by 1 or it increases by 1 depending on how you look at it. But let's go ahead and define some variables. So I'll start by saying let, and I'll say row start index. So the index of the row that we start at naturally is at 0. That is the index of the row that we're starting at. And I'll say let row end index, and we'll call this one, again, the index of the row that we are ending at is not 0, not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 right there. Remember, this is 0 based index, obviously, so I want to do something like row.length. That is the row.length. That is 5 minus 1. That will give me the index that I want to access, like that. And then I want to do the same thing for columns. So I want to say column start index, and this is 0 because naturally you want to start at the first column. And then I'll call this column end index, and this is row at 0 dot length. This gets the columns. This is 5 at this point, minus 1 once again to get the index. Again, the point here, I have these variables here because I know where I'm starting and where I'm ending, and the variables will change every single time. Okay, so now I want to do something else. I want to ensure that all of this iteration is done while the starting index of the row is at least less than or equal to, let's call it, less than or equal to the ending index of the row. In other words, this index right here is my starting index. This index is my ending index. As we go in a spiral, we bring this up. We bring the row index up. Remember, we go inward. We go inward, right? So because we go inward, I want to do so in a fashion where, and also remember, we also bring the row start downward. We start at a downward row, at an increased row the more we go. So once again, this goes up. This goes up as in the number goes up, but it actually comes down. This comes up, the number comes down. Again, this is hard to understand. Think about it like this way. We have row index at 4, then it becomes 3, then it becomes 2, then it becomes 1. Remember, we're going in a spiral fashion. Likewise, this starts off at 0, becomes 1, 2, 3, so on, right? That's that. And the same deal with columns. So I want to do this iteration while my row start index is less than or equal to my row end index, and the call start index is less than or equal to the call end index. All I'm saying here is keep going while we can keep going. That's that. Okay. So this while loop has been established. Now from here, let's start putting in some more loops. So the first thing I want to do is start iterating this way. That is starting from the top left corner, going to the right. That's what I'm doing right now. So in fact, I put in comments, going to the right. That's that. Okay, now we can start by creating a for loop here. I don't want to do a while loop here because what happens when you do a while loop is that you have to create more variables, and I don't want to create too many temporary variables here. We already have 4. I want to keep this code concise, compact, easy to follow. So we're going to use a for loop, and we can get the job done just as well with the for loop here. So let's go ahead and do a for loop. So I'll say for let I equals, now what does I equal? I equals, remember, the row that we are starting from. But remember, we are going to the right now. When you go to the right, you're not spanning rows, you are spanning columns. So in fact, we want to start at the column that we are starting from. So the column start index, that's where we want to say. And then we want to keep going until we go to the column end index. So I'll just say column end index. Now, do you want to go until it's less than or equal to? Because there's a reason that we did a -1 here. We did a -1 because this is an index. So we can access the index of 4, no problem. So in fact, I want to go until it's equal to the end index. I don't want to stop short. I want to go all the way until the end. That's that. All right, and then I want to obviously do a minus. Well, actually, I want to do a plus because, again, we're starting at 0. We're going all the way to the right, and that's that. This is our for loop right here. Now, as we are doing this, let's start adding in points to our path. Now, what do we add in? We do push, because this is an array. And what do we want to push in? Well, I want to push in, first of all, I want to access road. Road is the array that we have. And I want to say road. Now, which row am I on? Well, I'm on the starting row. So row start index. And this is at 0. So this makes sense. We're just at the start row right now. All we're doing is spanning the columns. That's all. So at this point, I want to say row at the start index and then I, like that. Remember, I, at any given time, captures one of the columns. That's that. So we keep pushing that in and we just keep moving on. Okay, now let's go ahead and go on to another direction. So after we go to the right, in a spiral fashion, we have to go down. So let's go ahead and go down. And I'm going to go ahead and put some comments here saying going down. And then, let me just spell that right. So then I want to put another for loop here. So what do I do with the for loop? Well, I want to say for. Now, what do I want to say? For, now I'm not spanning columns anymore. Now I am spanning rows, right? I'm spanning rows. So I want to say for let I equals the row And I'm starting at the row that I'm still starting at, row start index 1. But remember, this is important. Do I want to start at the 0th row, or do I want to start at the first row? Because remember, we've already spanned, by spanning columns, see, by virtue of spanning columns, doesn't that also mean that we have spanned the first row? That's exactly what it means. So I don't want to check the 0th row position again. I just checked that. I already added 5. So what I want to do is, before I even construct this for loop, it will be wise to just say row start index, and I just want to increment that. That's all. So at this point, this row start index is 1. That's that. Okay, now I want to go down. And I want to go down, meaning I want to ensure that I do this loop while the I is less than or equal to the row end index, because this is the row end right here. Same logic here, except this is for rows. And here, because again, I'm starting at a lower end, I'm going higher, I want to naturally increment I like that. So that's that. And then same deal, I want to start pushing things into spiral path. Now, what do I want to push in? Again, I want to access the row, and now I want to access the ith value, because here we are spanning rows, and we always go row then column when we access a 2D array. So like that. And then what column do I want to access? Well, at the end of the day, when I'm going down, all this stuff right here, this is the end column, is it not? It's the lastmost column. So it's called end index, just like that. Okay, so far so good. Now we want to go to the left, just like that. From 9, 10, 11, all the way to 13. And same thing here, we're going to go and put a for loop here. And this for loop will be structured similarly to our earlier for loop of going to the right, except obviously opposite. So what I want to do is start I right over here, this 10. Because remember, we already counted this 9 right here. So I want to start I right here. Now, this right here is definitely not a starting column, because a starting column is all the way at the 0th position. The ending column is right here. So this is neither the ending nor the starting. But just the same way that we incremented the row index before starting our downward looking, we want to now start decrementing the end position of the column index. So why is that? We go end, column end, minus, minus. So now, instead of looking here, we start looking here. Remember, column end was, once upon a time, it was 4, and now it is 3. That's that. Same logic. We don't want to recheck stuff that we already looked at. Okay, so we say I equals, now it starts from the column end. And now I'm going back. I'm going to the left, right? So because I'm going left, I'm going in a lesser way. I am decrementing every single time. So I want to do this meanwhile the I is greater than or equal to the call start index, just like that. And then because we're going high to low, we have to decrement I every single time. That's that. And now we want to start pushing into spiral path. So what do we want to push into spiral path? Well, spiral path dot push, access the row again. And now which row are we accessing? Well, look, this is the bottommost row. So that would be row end index, our row end index. And obviously access that at I. So all it means is for this row that I'm being on right now, I'm spanning through all of the columns and I'm going for this in a leftward motion. So from here, just like that. Okay. And then we just have one more direction to go on, and that is we want to go up. And for going up, what we are doing is we are staying. So we're going here. We've already checked this 13. We've already checked that. All right. So we are starting not from the end index of the row, but the end index, the one before the end index of the row. So naturally, we want to decrement the end index of the row. That's that. So let's go ahead and do that as well. So I'll just decrement the row end index. And then I want to construct my for loop here. So for let I equals row, and then I want to say, remember, I'm starting from the end index and I'm going top, I'm going up, all right? So if I'm going up, I want to say while I is greater than or equal to the row start index. That's that, the row start index. And we've already incremented the row start index here. So we're not going to go all the way up until this one. We are going to go all the way up until this 16. It just works out that way because of the way we have structured our loops. Okay. Now again, because I'm starting high and I'm going low, I want to naturally decrement the I, just like that. And inside the spiral path, I want to start pushing in things again. Now, what do I push in? I'm going to push in, again, access that road. And we want to access the I, remember rows come first. So we access whatever row that we're on, and we are spanning the rows right now. Column stays the same. Which column are we on though? We're on the starting position of the column. That's that. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So call start index, just like that. Okay, now we're not done here because we've incremented row, decremented call, decremented row. At this point, we have to do some more action right here. We want to take this call start index and we want to, can you guess what that is? Call start index, starting here, we would like to increment it, just like that. This way we start at 17. So just want to increment it just like that. And now we're all good to go. So just an overview of what's happening here. We have defined our variables, our row starts, row ends, call starts, call ends. We're doing this all the while we can. That is, row is less than, the start is less than the end for both rows and columns. And it has to be an and here, not an or, because I need both. I need room to go for both rows and columns. That's why. Then I go to the right, I go down, left, and up, spiral fashion. Let's go ahead and run this code. Let's see what happens. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 20. Yep, and we got all of them right here. Perfect. So we have now spanned through this in a spiral fashion. Hope that makes sense. Hope this video was helpful. And that's that.